Hi, everybody. Welcome to the lecture for February 17th, 2025. This is a very short lecture because the content are in other lectures that are already on our Moodle page. So I want to refer you to those lectures and sort of the scope of what's going to happen this week. So the topic that we're approaching this week is methods. In other words, now you have your sources, you have your topic. How are you going to use those sources to research your topic? And so all of the content here in week 6 has to do with methods. Now, the first big decision that you have to make is whether you're going to use quantitative methods or qualitative methods. Quantitative methods means you're going to answer in numbers. So, you know, 50 of this sort of business started in 5 years, and of those 5 years, of those 50 businesses, 30 of them are still in business, and this is the things that they did. These are the things that they did that made that more likely, that sort of thing. And some of you do have really quantitative papers, and quite honestly, that's the piece that lends itself more naturally to risk analysis. So if you choose quantitative, you really don't have to break it down anymore and say what kind of quantitative. Quant is just quant. But if you have a qualitative paper, which most of you do, you're going to want to examine it in some way. Like you're going to examine it by how people spoke to each other when they were discussing this, or some different examples I have. For example, I talk about using the Deixis tool for discourse analysis in this lecture. And I talk a little bit about, I have an example paper here for using petroleum reserves. And then I have an example of what that Deixis tool looks like. So there are other methods. When you read this particular resource, qualitative method section sample, you'll see sort of what we're getting at. And then we also have a discussion forum and the comparative literature resource. That is also a qualitative method. So in other words, comparative literature is a way that you can analyze or think about how your results are going to be. So based on all of these resources, you have several lectures and you have some different papers. And the evaluation of petroleum research, this is huge. You're not going to have to read this whole thing. It's 139 pages put out by the Society of Petroleum Engineers in conjunction with some other people. But it goes kind of nicely with how you can write that sort of a paper. So if you look, for example, at the example that I've put up on our page, this is sort of how, there we go. This sort of gives us an idea of different ways that reserves are risked. And I focused this paper on the Bakken Formation that is primarily in North Dakota, or the Bakken Formation, but also the Williston Basin and the different zones that are available for petroleum reserves. So I drew a geologic column and I gave you some information. And then I talked a little bit about how resources decline. And then I did just a handwritten analysis of how I would risk the initial production from a well based on the potential hit and the magnitude of the hit from each of these 6 formations. So if you've ever had an opportunity to work in the oil field or lived with somebody, had a spouse or a parent who worked in the oil field, this might be a good indication to you of what a quantitative risk analysis for this class might look like. So if not, it may just be something that's mildly interesting to you. So how it affects you and how important it will be to you really depends on the nature of your paper and also on your background. But there are some different examples here of how to write different different method sections. And I have, for example, I just want to get this better here. I want to get that. Sorry. Let me get this shared. Okay, so this is qualitative. So the last one I showed you is quantitative. This is a qualitative risk analysis page, the method section. And there is or was an online app called KidBlog that was sometimes used in K-12 classrooms. And using online tools in a K-12 classroom, especially with little ones, is kind of difficult because it's probably important since the kids are they're digital natives. But for a teacher to introduce the internet into a class can be kind of something that they want to be really careful of. So that paper really showed some good insight into how they were going to look at this problem of introducing the opportunity that's associated with introducing the internet into the classroom while minimizing the risks. So it's good paper. Anyway, the one thing I want to say kind of over and over again, when you talk about methods, you do not talk specifically about your situation. You talk about what you're going to use to analyze your situation. So you can talk about comparative literature, you can talk about DEXIS tool, you can talk about quantitative methods and what kind of quantitative, what you're going to look at. But you don't put your actual results or your actual analysis of your data into the methods section. So this is one of those places where I told you when you write a research paper, sometimes it feels like you're saying the same thing over and over and over again. And you kind of are. You're breaking it up into these little factions that all come to the same end, which is I researched this topic using some methods, and these are the results I found. So this is kind of that piece that just talks about how you're going to do it, not what you actually did and not what your results are. So this method section is going to be a page or two long, and you're just going to describe a method or two and then state that you're going to apply it to your paper. And then when you do the analysis, you'll apply it to yours. And then when you do the results or the conclusions, you'll talk about how it actually turned out. All right. So if you have any questions this week, let me know. I will not be here tonight. I'm recording this at 2:30 in the afternoon because I have an appointment at 5 that I have to keep. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to get a hold of me, and I will look forward to continuing working on your paper with you. So in the meantime, have a great day.